The information I'm going to share, it comes from NLP, so the neuro-linguistic programming, which I mentioned maybe in the very first class, I think. So I'm going to teach you some bad stuff. I'm going to teach you some interesting things which you might use as a basis for your own experiment during communication and see whether it proves right or not. I wanted to start with this phrase, which is one of the basic presuppositions of NLP. So it says that if someone else can do it, I can do it too. So if anywhere in the world there is a person who is able to do something, this means that you can at least try to learn that. Maybe you will not master it as efficiently or effectively as the original person, but at least you can do it. And this is not an axiom or anything. It's just a statement which is nice to believe to develop your growth mindset, as we talked about earlier. And I also thought that it's very nice to put it before the information that I'm going to tell you, because if something is not easy in the beginning, it doesn't mean that you can't master it later. So the idea is that or the classical idea is that every individual, when they speak about something, they move their eyes in different directions, and that has a meaning. So, for instance, as you can see in this picture, we will slowly go through it so that you remember. So they say that somehow the right side, so this is the right side of the person who is in front of you, okay? The right side is sort of lying, but otherwise, you can say this is the construction of information. So it's not necessarily lying, but it's also like imagination or assumptions or something that person didn't have in their experience before. And they are telling you about this now, or they're coming up with this information now. And the left side is the truth, or something connected to remembering. So that's something that I experienced, or some information that I accessed, and then I'm just telling you about this. Okay, so many times if you ask me a question, I would look to the left and think, oh, what was that that I already know, and then I answer. But if I look to the right, then it means that I'm just making something up. Yeah, so hopefully I'm mostly looking to the left side. Yes, so then the next level of understanding this is the modality of the information. So if the person looks up, not just lateral up, but to one of the sides, that means that they're accessing the visual information. So if I'm looking, as we now understand, if I'm looking left up, that's something that I've seen. So for instance, if I say, I don't know, like, what does the giraffe look like? And then you will look there, for instance, and you will try to remember what did it look like. And if I say, what does the, I don't know, something that you never seen, what does the fluffy turtle look like? Then you would probably have to imagine that. Okay, fluffy pink turtle. Then the middle part, it's the auditory information, so something you've heard before. And again, if I look to the right, I construct it. So imagine what your voice would sound like if you were 90 years old, or if Britney Spears sang a song of Pavarotti, what would it sound like? Okay, and then to the left, it means something you know. So can you just imagine a song that you already heard your favorite song sound like, and you think about this, and then you look to the left because you can't imagine it. The songs are not tangible. Okay, and the kind of more complicated part is bottom, because bottom right, it means feelings. So it's not lies, it's just feelings. So, and this is especially, you remember, we talked about different modalities before. So the visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. And if the person is mostly kinesthetic, they would many times look there, even if you ask them visual questions like, what does can you imagine a sea? And then they don't look right up, thinking that what the sea looks like, but they think about it as something like, oh, the sea is cold, or it's, I don't know, this kind of information, the sand around the sea, or the foam, and things like this. How does it feel when they touch it, for instance? Or it could also, when people talk about their feelings, they can look down. So for instance, someone gives you the, what is it, the assertive feedback, and they say, when you said that I'm stupid, I felt really disappointed. And they look down because they connect to their feelings, for instance. And to the left, bottom left, this is the internal dialogue or some digital information. So some specifically strict information that you might, you might just remember some internal dialogue in your head, and you just say it, you don't construct it right now. Yes. So this is the model, and the idea is that the eye movement is extremely rapid. And why did I say that this is the classical model? Is that because this works for many people, but this doesn't necessarily work with every specific individual. So when you talk to someone, and this is where calibration starts, when you talk to them, you ask them different kinds of questions, and when you listen to their answers, you also observe where do their eyes go. And so for instance, they tell you what they have seen, and maybe it doesn't like necessarily go so much up on like that they're sitting like this, you know. They just might have like a very rapid movement upwards. Okay, so, and the same for each of them. That's why you need to experience it with every person and ask them many questions so that you can at least start to observe that their eyes are at all moving. So I have noticed that for some people it's kind of hard to notice. So I hope we will practice it a little bit now. And then you can try it out yourself. I think like after first 40 people, it gets easier, but you don't necessarily have to judge it as lies or not lies. So just consider that right now the person is not giving the information that they already have in their brain, but giving the information that they have constructed.
I have a question about, is it the left side when you look at someone, or is it their left side?
It's their left side.
Okay. So from like client-centered perspective.
Yeah. So in this case, we're looking at the person in this picture. We're looking at the person, and that's exactly how it works. Okay. Do you have any other questions about this?
Yeah, I have one more question, because when you talk with a person, I've learned that usually the person that is talking looks somewhere else, and the person that's listening is looking directly at the person, because when both would look at each other, they would stare, and that's uncomfortable for both. So
Yeah.
usually the person who's talking looks somewhere else. Can you also relate it then to that, or just to like other special circumstances?
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. So, of course, you need to consider what's your direction, like what's the, how do you say, situation in the space. So if you're like 90 degrees to each other, or you're walking shoulder by shoulder, and then you don't even look into their eyes, you can observe it. Or for instance, if there is, the person has notes, or like me for now, I have a little window in the bottom, so I constantly look there. So you can't say that I'm all the time in my internal dialogue. I'm just looking at the window. Or for instance, the person says like something about the world, and they have a map of the world in front of them. So that's also, you have to kind of correct for that. That's why if you, yeah, and also the culture. So as you said, in some cultures, it's not good. It's not so polite to look straight into the eyes all the time. Yes. But otherwise, if you have access to people's eyes, you can at least somehow see the differences. So you don't take it strictly from the first eye movement that they make, but just after, I don't know, 10 minutes, you can maybe understand their eye language better. And or if it's your close person, then you can see the pattern. So last two things. So sometimes people look like all around the globe, they just make a circle with their eyes. which means that they are looking for information. So this is something they didn't expect, or they don't have an answer. So they just, ooh, what was it? I don't even know. Yes, this is one. And the second one is when they look straight at you. This is called like a trans situation. And that's when you can maybe, like, that's when manipulation actually happens. So when the person is kind of so shocked or so surprised, they become more inducible. So you can tell them anything. If they stop, look at you, and you can say everything is all right, and then they instantly come down, because this is a sort of little manipulation that you did. Okay. So this is pretty much all. I just wanted to, why I'm pointing out this manipulation in lies is not because I want you to learn how to lie better. It's because I want you to be conscious about the use of this kind of things, and just observe through different perspectives. So these are the steps. So since you know this information, you know something about the person, and you can observe kind of what they say, and also a little bit more to it as their body language. Just the body language, like this is very primitive, but then the eye movement is a little bit more advanced, but you have to also specify it to every case. What can you do with this is that you can convince people to do something. And before I say this, what I want to say next, I want to say that almost every communication is a manipulation in a way. So you say something and you expect certain response, or you say something and you influence people in a way. So if you have a plan on how to influence them, and if it's a positive plan, then there is no bad thing behind, like there is nothing bad about you being conscious of what you're doing when you're building the communication, as long as you can be fluent with it and it doesn't inhibit your talk. Okay, so these are the steps. So first step is adjustment. This is where you learn something about the person. Like, for instance, we learned about Jana, and you want to adjust yourself and how you talk and how you, I don't know, move to what is that they're showing to you. Okay, so if I was sitting like this and you were very involved, like all the time, yes, for 5 minutes maybe, and you were involved, I sometimes actually can notice that some people just start to sit like this too, because of this mirror neurons that we have. So this is completely natural, that when we adjust to each other if we want to have a connection. This is like the result of productive adjustment. Is called rapport or rapport. That's like a resonance between two people. When you have the rapport and people fall into you, sort of, you can lead them. And here, an exercise could be like, if you learn to do adjustment, if you feel there is a rapport, you talk to a person and you, for instance, decide to lead them to a window. You were standing there, and then you slowly lead them to the window. Or when you're walking and talking with someone, you just can change the way, and they will just follow you, without themselves deciding that they wanted to do this. So these little things, this resonance, makes people do what you do. And important stage, like the last stage, is detuning. So disconnection. So you created a connection, and somehow you have to stop it, because you don't want to be constantly in this, I don't know, if you talk about relationship, maybe this is a relationship that you don't like and you want to stop it. So to do this, you can start disconnecting by different like slowly disconnecting, and I will show you the stages. And okay, you stop, for instance, mimicking their posture, you stop talking in the same pace and things like this, and then they are like, oh, what is this person? They're like completely not like me, and they kind of already feel more distant with you, and then it's easier to, for instance, stop this relationship or stop the communication. So these are the levels of adjustment I wanted to show you. So there are predicates. first of all, this is something we already talked about: the auditory, visually, gustatory, olfactory, and kinesthetic. Okay, so gustatory is the taste, olfactory is the smell. And this means, and I will show you the words, this means that people use specific language if they're more visual, like, so I can't imagine, can you imagine you see, and things like this. Okay, we'll read that. And if they, for instance, use the gustatory language, it might mean that they have weight problems, or they're very hungry. Yeah, but many times it means that they have weight problems. I don't know if you're in your languages you have something like this, but in Russian they say, oh, this text is written in really tasty way, you know, like, or I don't know if you say something like this, but somehow this is a little bit kitschy. And if people use this kind of words, that means that maybe this is their focus right now, not because this is their modality. Okay, then you can adjust to speech. So the sound of speech, the sound of voice, or somehow the volume, the speed. So I speak pretty fast, and if somebody is talking to me really slow like this, I would probably not connect to them. Okay, the intonations. So my voice is like that, but if somebody has a really, you know, very monotonous voice, maybe if I talk to them and I want to adjust, I would do the same. Okay, or if I talk to any of you, like sometimes I also change my voice because you also speak differently, and I kind of intuitively adjust to this. Okay, so the important thing here is not to adjust by accent. So if this just might look really rude if I don't know, someone comes from India or something, and you suddenly start to talk with Indian accent because they are like this, and this would not really play a good role in your communication. Or I don't know, start to speak with French accent if you don't have it, etc. Okay, then breathing is really tricky. You can adjust to the breathing of the person, and when I heard it first time, I was like, this is terrible, because you know, nobody, people usually don't really reflect on their breathing, right? So this is something that happens subconsciously, and if you're not a meditator or anything, you don't care about your breathing at all. But if you want to make a connection, you can somehow, if you can reflect on this kind of information, you can start breathing in the pace that the person does. Or this could also be used in the, you know, romantic relationship. If you want to have a, or maybe with your friends, even if you want to have a deeper connection with somebody, you can start following their breath. And for instance, when you resonate already, you can change it. For instance, you want to calm them down, they're, and then you do the same, and then you're like slowly you slowly bring them to the normal level of breathing, and they calm down. Yeah, but this is a kind of really tricky technique, but you can try it if you want. You can try it with men and women also. That must work well in a romantic
I have a
relationship.
question about the breathing.
Yes.
So, do you do it without telling the person, or do you do
Yes.
it with telling the person?
No, you do it without telling the person.
Okay, that's tough.
Yeah, that's tough. So of course, I mean, you can, if you're training to do this, you can try. And like in general, you don't have to do any of what I'm talking about today. So this is not life skill, like essential life skills, but these are more like advanced things that you can use to, yeah, to maybe make communication more beneficial to you if you have good intentions, of course. Yeah, or if you're like a psychotherapist, maybe this would help empathy to build up, and you want to lead the person somewhere, you can use this kind of thing. Okay, so there must be like good ways you can use it and bad ways you can use it. And yeah, nobody can prohibit you to you know, adjust to somebody's breath. They wouldn't even notice. Okay, so all in all, there are also the ones that we can observe: the body, so the facial expressions, the gestures, and the posture. So for instance, here you can see the different kinds of levels of this, but you have to understand something, that just monkeying someone is not what we're talking about here. So if I do a very specific gesture or posture, I put my legs like one leg on top of another, or I sit like this, or whatever weird posture that I have. If it's not natural for you, don't try to copy that. You only need to adjust what the person did to your feeling. So I sometimes, for instance, men, many times they put legs, like very openly on top of each other, and that's not natural for me. If I do this, it wouldn't look right. So I can just cross my legs, and that would already be a sort of little adjustment. Or if the person, for instance, leans towards you, you want to lean toward them a little bit, or vice versa. Or if they touched their nose, or maybe you can like just touch your nose a little bit. Just don't do it in very visible way, and then just think what could be an adjustment here, and you will see how much they will they will change your attitude to what you're saying. Okay, I just wanted to show you briefly the predicates. So as I told you, there are some words that people use mostly when they talk about things, depending on their type, and that's how you can judge, like where they will look, or yeah, how you should talk to them. So what you said about the words, I don't really know. Like we can call it keywords or something like this, or like repetitive words. I don't know what's the English word for that, but something that people always say. For me, it's and for instance, if you say I wouldn't even hear that you said it, but I would instantly feel that there is a connection. Or I always say okay, and maybe if you say this, then I also feel this. Okay. So okay, so for visual, it's the visual words like see, look, view, appear, imagine, illuminate, clear. So the image is not clear for me, and the situation is not clear. I want to see the bigger picture and stuff like that. Auditory is hear, listen, sounds. Oh, how does it sound to you? Um, for the first one, does it look good to you? Does it sound good to you? Or make music, harmonize, tune in. This person, we stopped our relationship because we couldn't tune in, or for the first one, he didn't look right to me. Okay, and stuff like that. And then kinesthetic is feel, touch, grasp, sleep through, catch on, tap into, and different kinds of feeling maybe words also. This proposition is very solid, or yeah, this is fundamental. It doesn't feel right to me, or it feels so good around them. Okay, and then there is they also say there is a fourth type, as I told you, the type you should run away from. It's kind of hard to synchronize yourself with digital people because they use very rational words, like sense, experience, understand, think, learn, decide. So these are like process words, distinct. But at the same time, if you see that the person is using this kind of words all the time, just pick several that you can try to add to your language. Because if you're completely kinesthetic or something, you wouldn't really prove your point to a digital person, and there could be misunderstanding, or there might be a friend of yours whom you say something, and then they say the same thing, and you're like, oh, I just said the same thing, but probably you used different predicates, so they didn't hear it, or didn't perceive it, or didn't see your point. I use 3 now. Okay, the other thing that could help you to kind of build connection with others, and you can use it when you're making friends or meeting someone new, is the me too. Not the the rape movement, but just a normal phrase. So you just say, they say something, and if it resonates to you, you say me too. This is very simple, but this helps a lot. And for instance, many people say but when they're trying to talk to someone makes a point and you say like, yes, but, and this is not how you build relationship. You say, me too, but if you disagree, you can say at the same time, there is this, yeah, me too. I also sometimes go out for groceries. At the same time, I wear my mask and I limit it to one time per month, or I don't know, whatever. So you can try to use this one. Okay, and yeah, this is another one of the presuppositions of NLP, that the meaning of the message is the response that follows. So the meaning, the reason why you send the message is to get a certain response. Okay, so I just wanted to give you an example of this. And this is not a revolutionary model, but somehow it can change something in your experience. So maybe this is more a collectivistic style of doing the assertiveness. So, okay, so there is a message and there is a reaction. This is the classic model. So, for instance, he says, I think you're not earning enough to buy so many new jeans. Okay, and she says, did you really have to say that? Or the girlfriend of your girlfriend says, oh, in this dress you look really, really fat. And then you're like, did you really have to say this? So whenever and they answer with something like, oh, I didn't mean that, and like, I'm sorry, and I just wanted to be honest, or something like this. So if situation like this happens, this means that the communicator didn't really think of what reaction they want to get. And the proposed way, I didn't change it, sorry. It should be like reaction and then message. So he should, for instance, phrase it like this. So he should first think, why is she even buying those jeans? And then he thinks maybe she needs some attention, or she needs some, she wants to be loved. And then he says, oh, I understand that probably you buy all those jeans because you want to feel more loved and comfortable. And then the woman's like, oh, what? And then the shock comes, because nobody anticipates that people would think about your needs first and then talk to you. Yes, so the idea behind this reverse model is to think of the good intentions, because every person has, like, out of many intentions they have in their actions, they have at least one intention that is good for them. So even like, for instance, if the person suicides, there was at least one intention that was connected to themselves feeling better. Okay, or if they, any kind of example.